So, how do you go about creating one set of safety rules for a technology as vast and versatile as artificial intelligence? It's a really fundamental challenge, right? I mean, the same core technology that guides a medical scanner could just as easily be in charge of the brakes on a motorcycle. The EU's answer wasn't to write 1,000 different rulebooks. Instead, they engineered one, incredibly smart one. Let's get into it.
So, what's their big idea? Well, it's this really elegant legal strategy they call legislative grafting. Instead of building a whole new regulatory system from the ground up, the AI Act literally grafts its new rules right onto the strong, established foundation of existing product safety laws. It's a fascinating approach, and this analysis was conducted under the scientific oversight of Professor Vihar Kiskinov. All right, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start with the EU's unique grafting approach. Then we'll put one specific legal article under the microscope to see how it works. After that, we'll look at the new rules for AI, see how they're shaking up industry, and finish with a practical path for compliance. So you might be wondering, why do it this way? Well, the folks who wrote the AI Act made a really smart call. Why reinvent the wheel? Think about it. The national authorities that oversee cars or toys or medical devices, they have decades of specialized experience. Creating a brand new AI authority from scratch would have been a huge waste of all that built-in expertise.
And this whole integration strategy wasn't some last-minute idea. If you look at the timeline, it was a core part of the plan right from the beginning. That 2021 proposal already had the blueprint for this grafting idea. And while other parts of the act were fought over tooth and nail, this approach was something everyone could pretty much agree on, which is pretty telling. So how does this grafting actually work on a practical level? Well, let's zoom in and do a bit of a forensic analysis on a single, really powerful piece of the law, Article 104. This is the bit that connects the AI Act directly to the safety rules for things like motorcycles and scooters.
Okay, here it is. This is the text. It might look a little dense, but this one sentence is the absolute linchpin. It basically piggybacks on an existing power the European Commission has to set super detailed technical standards. All it says is, from now on, whenever you're making those technical rules for an AI safety part, you must include the new requirements from the AI Act. It's that simple and that powerful.
So, what counts as an AI system? The definition they came up with is intentionally, and I mean really broad. It's technology neutral. They did this on purpose to make it future-proof, so it doesn't just cover the machine learning we have today, but whatever comes next, too. They wanted to make sure this law wouldn't be obsolete in 5 years.
The really tough rules kick in when an AI system is used as a safety component. Now, an AI-powered anti-lock braking system, that's a no-brainer, for sure. But here's where it gets tricky. What about an AI that monitors if a rider is getting tired, or one that predicts when the brakes might fail? How these borderline cases get classified is a huge deal. It's going to decide just how far this law actually reaches.
Now, that little phrase, shall be taken into account, might sound kind of gentle, right? Like a polite suggestion. Let me tell you, it's not. In the world of EU law, that phrase is basically a command. It creates a mandatory, ironclad obligation. It means the Commission has no choice but to turn the AI Act big ideas into hard, specific, and legally binding technical rules for every single new AI safety part. Okay, so we've seen the legal plumbing, how it all connects. Now let's get to the substance. What are these new obligations that manufacturers are actually facing? The biggest change is a shift in mindset, from thinking about safety as a one-time check to managing it constantly, throughout the product's entire life. Let's look at a couple of these in practice. Risk management, for example. It's not just about making sure the bike works when it leaves the showroom. Now you have to think about things like, what happens when a sensor gets old and starts to degrade after years of being out in the rain? And then there's Article 12 on record keeping. This basically requires a black box for AI systems, so you can go back after an accident and see exactly what the AI was thinking. All these new rules create a fascinating trade-off for the engineers actually building this stuff. On one hand, you could use a simpler, more transparent AI model. It might not be the highest performing, but it's way easier to explain to regulators. On the other hand, you could use a super complex black box AI that performs brilliantly, but then you've got to do a ton of extra work to prove how it makes its decisions. Suddenly, it's not just about raw performance, it's about explainability. And of course, these challenges don't just stay with the engineers. These new obligations send massive ripple effects out that are going to transform the entire automotive supply chain, from the smallest component makers to the biggest brands in the world. Just think about product liability for a second. That new logging requirement changes everything. Let's say a crash happens. Investigators can now pull the AI system's logs. This data gives them an unbelievable audit trail, a step-by-step replay that makes it way easier to figure out what went wrong. Was it a flaw in the AI? An error in how it was installed? This level of traceability really raises the stakes for everyone involved.
So if you're a big vehicle manufacturer, this new liability risk makes you push those compliance demands down to all your suppliers through your contracts. This could mean bigger suppliers who can afford all the compliance work have an advantage. We're probably going to see a whole new industry of AI compliance as a service companies pop up. And it'll force companies to move away from just buying parts to forming really deep long-term partnerships.
So, with all this change, how can companies actually navigate this new world? The absolute key is to be proactive. You can't just have a reactive checklist mindset. You have to build a strategy that weaves these principles of trustworthy AI right into your company's DNA.
A solid governance framework is where you have to start. That means getting the right people in a room, having someone who's officially in charge of responsible AI, and just knowing what AI you have in the first place. But it's also about looking outward, getting involved with the groups that are writing the technical standards, and using things like regulatory sandboxes to test out new ideas safely with guidance from the regulators themselves.
And this right here, this comparison really nails the fundamental shift. Compliance used to be this one-time hurdle you had to clear before you could sell your product. The AI Act changes it into a continuous, ongoing process of management and monitoring that lasts for the entire life of the AI system. It's a journey, not a destination.
And that brings us back to why we spent so much time on one article about motorcycles. Because this whole legislative grafting approach we saw in Article 104, it's not a one-off. It's the pilot program. It is the blueprint for how the EU is going to regulate AI in everything, from huge factory machines to medical scanners to your kids' toys. What happens in the auto industry is the preview for all manufacturing.
And so, this all leads us to the final, multi-billion-dollar question. The EU is making a huge bet here that this integrated lifelong approach is the way to build trust and safety in AI without killing innovation. So, is this the global blueprint that everyone else will copy? Or is it an impossibly complex burden that will actually create a barrier to innovation and push other countries to find a totally different path? The answer to that is going to shape the future of technology for all of us.